For decades, Diana Ross stayed silent. Silent about the bond that connected her to one of the most celebrated and misunderstood icons in music history, Michael Jackson. They weren't just collaborators. They weren't just friends. Their connection ran deeper, rooted in years of private conversations, shared struggles, and a kind of love that defied explanation. She watched him rise. She saw the joy, the genius, and the pain the world never truly understood. And through it all, she protected the truth only someone who loved him like family could ever tell. Now at 81, Diana Ross is finally ready to speak. Not to defend, not to expose, but to honor the boy behind brilliance, and to reveal a side of Michael Jackson the world never truly knew. This is her truth, and this time, she's telling it in her own words. Long before the spotlight, before the gowns, the Grammys, or the global fame, there was a little girl named Diane. Born on March 26, 1944, in Detroit's Brewster Douglas housing projects, Diana Ross came into the world with nothing promised. She wasn't born into wealth or opportunity, but she was born with something rare: vision, drive, and a voice that could stop time. In the heart of Motown, she grew up surrounded by music, culture, and community. Yet her dreams stretched far beyond the city limits. By her teens, she was already chasing the impossible, rehearsing harmonies in local halls and dreaming of stages she hadn't yet seen. That dream began to take shape when she joined a young vocal group called the Primettes, who soon caught the attention of Motown founder Berry Gordy. Renamed the Supremes, the trio would go on to rewrite the rules of American music. But even among greatness, one voice stood out: Diana's. Smooth, elegant, unmistakable. She wasn't just singing, she was captivating. And as the group soared with hits like Stop, In the Name of Love, and You Can't Hurry Love, it became clear: Diana Ross wasn't just a star. She was a movement in the making. From the shadows of Detroit to the center of the world stage, Diana Ross didn't just rise, she ascended. With purpose, with poise, and with power. By 1970, Diana Ross had conquered the world as the voice of the Supremes. But for her, that wasn't the finish line. It was just the beginning. Stepping away from the most successful girl group in history wasn't easy. The spotlight can be warm, but it can also cast long shadows. She was leaving behind security, sisterhood, and a legacy. And yet she chose to stand alone. Her solo debut wasn't just a career move. It was a declaration. Ain't No Mountain High Enough wasn't just a chart-topping single. It was a prophecy. A soaring, emotional anthem that proved Diana didn't need a group to lead. She already was one. What followed was a string of timeless classics: Touch Me in the Morning, Love Hangover, The Boss, and I'm Coming Out. Each track a different version of herself. Vulnerable, bold, joyful, unshaken. She wasn't following trends, she was setting them. Navigating pop, soul, R&B, disco, and even jazz with grace and control. And while the industry changed around her, Diana Ross remained unmovable. Not because she refused to evolve, but because she always knew who she was. In a world that often demanded women shrink themselves to fit in, Diana expanded, and the world adjusted around her. By the early 1970s, Diana Ross had already proven she could command a stage. But now, she was ready to take on the screen. Her performance as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues didn't just impress, it stunned. Audiences watched in awe as she transformed into the troubled jazz legend, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. She had crossed the invisible line few singers ever dared to approach, and she did it with elegance, depth, and raw emotional power. But it wasn't just film that was evolving. Something else, someone else, was on the rise. A boy named Michael Jackson. Diana first met him backstage at Motown when he was just 9 years old. Bright-eyed, full of spark, and already commanding attention, Michael was introduced to her by Berry Gordy. From the beginning, she sensed something rare in him. And she wasn't wrong. When The Wiz began production in the late 1970s, a reimagining of The Wizard of Oz with an all-black cast, Diana Ross played Dorothy. And beside her, as the Scarecrow, was a now teenaged Michael Jackson. On screen, they shared scenes, but off screen, something much more powerful was taking shape. A bond, a trust, a quiet understanding between two people who knew what it meant to live under the weight of the spotlight. For Michael, Diana wasn't just a co-star. She became something else entirely. A guide, a safe place, and perhaps the only person who saw the child behind the prodigy. Behind the lights, the awards, and the perfect poise, there was a woman navigating a world that rarely allowed her to simply be. Diana Ross didn't just lead on stage. She led a complex life off of it. And love, in all its beauty and chaos, shaped much of that journey. In the 1960s, as her star rose with the Supremes, Diana entered a relationship with Motown founder Berry Gordy. It was passionate, creative, and powerful, but also private. So private, in fact, that when Diana became pregnant with their child, she made a quiet yet bold decision. She married music executive Robert Ellis Silverstein 2 months into her pregnancy, fully aware that Berry was the biological father. Robert embraced the child, Rhonda, as his own. He raised her with love, stability, and his name. For years, Rhonda called Gordy Uncle Gibi, never suspecting the truth. That truth didn't come out until Rhonda turned 13, when Diana sat her down and gently pulled back the curtain. It was a moment filled with pain, but also clarity. Diana had spent her life protecting her children from the chaos that fame could bring. And when she had 2 more daughters, Tracy and Chudney, she continued to build a life that was grounded, even as the world spun around her. But her marriage to Silverstein eventually ended. And yet, like so many of her life's chapters, it ended with grace. They remained respectful co-parents, bonded by family. In love, as in music, Diana Ross never followed a script. She followed her heart, even when it broke. Years after her first marriage ended, Diana Ross found love again, but this time, it came from across the ocean. In 1985, she met Arne Jr., a Norwegian shipping magnate and adventurer. He wasn't from the world of music or fame, but that's what made the connection real. With Arne, Diana found not just romance, but refuge. A year later, they were married in a lavish, joy-filled ceremony. And with that, she didn't just get a husband, she became a stepmother to his 3 children. She embraced them with warmth and care, creating a blended family built not on spotlight, but on love. Together, they had 2 sons of their own, Ross and Evan. Both would grow up to follow creative paths, especially Evan, who became an actor and musician, carrying on his mother's artistic spirit with his own voice. But even the strongest bonds can be tested. In 2000, their marriage came to an end, amid reports that Arne had fathered a child with another woman. It was a betrayal that shook Diana, but it didn't erase the love they once shared. In fact, she would later refer to Arne as the love of her life. Just 4 years after their divorce, tragedy struck. Arne Jr. died in a mountain climbing accident in South Africa. The news was devastating. Though they had separated, the connection endured. The loss was deep, and so was the grief. Yet even in sorrow, Diana remained graceful. She stayed close with his children. She honored his memory. She continued to carry their shared history, not with bitterness, but with love. Because for Diana Ross, love doesn't end. It simply changes shape and stays with you. In an industry where fame is fleeting, Diana Ross refused to disappear. While others stepped away, slowed down, or were forgotten, she kept going. Not because she had to, but because she could. Through the 80s, 90s, and beyond, Diana Ross remained a force. From chart-topping hits like Upside Down and I'm Coming Out, to sold-out international tours and celebrated film appearances, she didn't just maintain her career, she expanded it. She wasn't writing a legacy, she was still building one. Awards continued to pour in. A Golden Globe, a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, Kennedy Center Honors, and induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Supremes. And in 2016, President Barack Obama awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the highest civilian honors in the United States. But what mattered more than the trophies was the connection. Across generations, across cultures, Diana Ross became more than a performer. She became a symbol of elegance, of strength, of what it means to endure. Her 2021 album, Thank You, was a tribute not to herself, but to her fans. A love letter to the people who stood with her across 6 decades. And still, her voice, both fierce and fragile, could stop hearts, could stir something timeless. In every era, she showed up, reinvented, reclaimed, and reminded the world. Legends aren't born, they are built. Note by note, step by step. And Diana Ross is still building. He was the king of pop. She was the queen of Motown. But behind the headlines, behind the fame, they were simply Michael and Diana. Their relationship was never just professional. From the moment Diana met Michael at just 9 years old, she saw something in him that the world hadn't yet caught up to. A soul too deep for his age and a hunger not for fame, but for belonging. She took him under her wing during the Jackson 5's early days at Motown. To the public, she was a mentor. But to Michael, she became something more. A safe place. A guiding light. Over the years, their connection grew. Through tours, transitions, and transformations, they stayed close, sharing private moments away from the flashbulbs. Diana saw through the glitter, the awards, the spectacle. She saw the boy who still needed to be loved, not for what he could do, but for who he was. He never stopped being that little boy who just wanted someone to hold his hand, she later revealed. Her voice trembled as she recalled his late-night phone calls, often at 3 a.m., when he would cry softly, asking if he was still loved. It was a bond built not on fame, but fragility. Not performance, but protection. Diana didn't worship Michael Jackson the icon. She understood Michael Jackson the person. And through all the chaos, she never stopped loving him like family. The world saw a superstar. Diana Ross saw something else. A child trapped inside a legend. As Michael Jackson's fame exploded in the 1980s, his life became a whirlwind of lights, cameras, headlines, and judgment. But behind the carefully choreographed performances and record-breaking success, he was unraveling in ways only a few ever truly saw. Diana was one of them. In her recent reflections, she didn't shy away from the complexity of Michael's journey. She acknowledged his brilliance, the unmatched creativity, the tireless work ethic, the way he could command an audience with a whisper or a glance. But she also saw the other side, the isolation, the distortion of self, the way fame chipped away at identity until only the performance remained. Diana remembered the calls, the whispers of doubt, the aching question behind his voice. Do they still love me? She didn't offer judgment, only compassion. Michael wasn't broken, she said. He was beautiful, just burdened. The media focused on the spectacle, the surgeries, the scandals, but Diana saw the soul, the boy who once danced for her in a Motown hallway, the young man who still needed reassurance that he was more than the myth. For Diana Ross, loving Michael Jackson wasn't about defending him. It was about remembering him. Not as a ghost or a headline, but as someone real, someone human. For decades, she stayed quiet. While the world dissected Michael Jackson's life, speculated on his pain, and debated his legacy, Diana Ross said nothing. Not because she didn't care, but because her love for him was too sacred to be reduced to tabloid noise. But now, at 81, she has finally chosen to speak. And what she shares isn't defense, it's devotion. In her own words, she tells the story the world never fully heard. The truth about who Michael Jackson was behind closed doors. The truth of a bond that survived distance, fame, and decades of silence. The truth of a boy who never stopped searching for love, and the woman who never stopped giving it. Her voice, still poised, now carries the gravity of years unsaid. She speaks of his genius, yes, but also of his fragility, his isolation, his innocence. Diana's truth doesn't erase the complexities. It honors them. He wasn't a boast or a cautionary tale, she says. He was Michael, he was love, and he was mine in a way that can't be explained. In finally telling this story, she offers more than remembrance. She offers healing. For him, for herself, and for everyone who still wonders who Michael Jackson truly was. Some legends fade. Diana Ross? She steps onto red carpets with 18-foot gowns embroidered with the names of her children. In 2025, at 81 years old, she stunned the world at the Met Gala, not just with elegance, but with intention. Her dress wasn't just fashion, it was family, a living tribute to every life she's nurtured, every soul she's shaped, both on stage and at home. And it wasn't a comeback, because she never left. From the Grammy stage to the Brit Awards, she continued to captivate audiences across continents. Not as a nostalgia act, but as a force of presence, a woman still defining what longevity, style, and substance truly look like. In a time when so much of fame burns fast and dies young, Diana Ross has endured, gracefully, powerfully, quietly loud. She is more than a music icon. She is a matriarch, a mirror of resilience, a voice that carries generations. And now, having opened her heart about the boy she once guided, Michael, she's not just preserving history, she's humanizing it. In her voice, there is wisdom. In her story, there is survival. And in her presence, there is a reminder to the world that true legends don't just last, they lead until the very end. In a world obsessed with fame, Diana Ross chose something greater: grace. For over 6 decades, she's been more than a performer. She's been a compass, a guide, a voice for those who needed one. And now, in the twilight of her extraordinary life, she offers us something even rarer than a song or a performance. She offers us the truth about motherhood, about loss, about Michael. She didn't speak out to defend him. She spoke out to remember him, not as a myth or controversy, but as someone real. A boy who danced too early, gave too much, and carried the weight of the world on shoulders still growing. Through Diana's words, we finally see the human behind the headline. And maybe, in hearing her truth, we begin to understand our own. Because behind every legend, there is a story. Behind every icon, a person. And behind Diana Ross's silence was always love.